I want to give you a history on me, mathematics. Between the ages of 4 and 5, my sister and I were both adopted. I was turning 5, she was turning 7. And prior to adoption, any form of abuse that you can think of, we experienced it on some level. Now, I'm not even suggesting, because it's not always the case, but I'll get back to that. Not everybody who is into BDSM has experienced abuse. Not everybody. A lot of people, but not everybody. And I'll get back to that. I'll circle back around, okay? But when I was younger, yes, we went through years of counseling, years. And you get to a point with counseling where you recognize what you should and shouldn't say. Certain things get really bad reactions, and there were many times in counseling that I did not feel safe to say what I was really feeling, and I was afraid of the consequence to say, hey, I'm feeling suicidal or depressed. Or I grew up kind of in an era, and I think that everybody had my best interest at heart when it came to how they dealt with the situation. But a lot of it was just, we're going to move forward. This happened, but we're just going to keep moving forward. And it really wasn't like being addressed, the deeper, darker stuff. And I was always really good at kind of putting on a smile and, playing the part. But there was always like a storm brewing within my soul. I really struggled feeling like I belonged, not just in my family, in the world. And I just had a higher understanding of things. It's really hard to explain when you just have a connection to things that you can't. I didn't have the vocabulary then, so I just had like a connection to the people and things around me. I could feel things on a really deep, intense level. I understood people's emotions very early on in life. I picked up on, so we call that intuition in the spiritual world, but it was like deeper than that. Sometimes I would have literal visions of things, and I actually knew people's story before they would say it. And I often connected with people who were kind of the outcast in, whether it was school or out in public. And it was because it was almost as if their story grabbed me. Now, I see now that it was a gift, but I didn't really understand that gift at that point in my life. And I will say this, that due to a lot of my unhealed trauma, it was like this constant cycle of the people that I encountered, even not necessarily friends, but usually romantic situations, were very toxic. I had pretty much any person that I dealt with after high school was extremely toxic and abusive towards me in some way. So, mostly verbal, emotional, some physical, but mostly verbal and emotional, which to me, you can handle so much. And I can't express to you how much damage the things that people say actually have over. I feel like physical is different, but on a mental level, it always hurt my soul more when it was deeper. So soul deep, if you know what I mean. Because usually when it got to that level, the individual would use things that were, you trusted them and you told them things that you wouldn't tell other people. And so it's like reopening that scar and leaving you really vulnerable, right? So there's that. And then there was also, there's many situations where I was really kind of sheltered, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but I was. I grew up on a dead-end road. It was myself, my sister, and we had a neighbor that was our age. And really, when I went out into the real world, I just wasn't quite prepared. And there were many times where my naivety walked me into situations where I found myself being subjected to things that were really dangerous. And sometimes I actually had to follow through in order to be able to remove myself from the situation, which is really scary. There are plenty of times where I look back at my life and I'm like, yeah, I should be dead. That I should be dead by now. But through divine guidance and grace, here I am, and I sit in front of you and I tell you that I was recovered through BDSM. This particular location that I took a job at is considered what they call like a lifestyle resort, and they have a dungeon. And it was more out of curiosity. I was just kind of exploring the place after my job was over, and I was looking in the different rooms, the clubs, whatever. And basically, the first thing, it started with what we call like voyeurism, where the curiosity was piqued and I more or less just watched. And I was definitely, wow, what is this? And I just stood and watched in the dungeon and was curious, intrigued, disturbed. There was a lot of feelings going on. And this is kind of a comment that I get by a lot of people who, when I decided to come out with this part of my life, there was a lot of backlash, and a lot of it was because people have this preconceived idea that if you're into BDSM, it's, you're abusing the other person and they are taking advantage of you. First and foremost, the most important thing people need to understand about BDSM is that it's centered around consent, which in a lot of experiences that I have had in my life, I can tell you 3 instances where I was drugged by somebody I went on a date with, wound up in a hotel, don't even know how I got there. I woke up naked. I don't actually know if I was assaulted, but I'm guessing if you're naked and you are in a hotel. And that happened. Also, I have wound up in situations where if I didn't do something, I wasn't going to be able to leave safely. That's not consent, And that's happened many times as a female in my life since I graduated high school, especially. Part of my naivety was that I just trusted everyone and I kind of like followed people blindly, and not always, like sometimes in group settings, and I really just didn't know what I was getting into. And sometimes by the time it was obvious, it was too late. So, I'm not, and I'm being very casual about it because I've already done my healing on this. And some people, there's things that happen to them and they allow it to be the destruction within themselves, And for me, there was this point in my life where I just wanted to heal. I was tired. I was so tired of that, I literally have been sexualized my entire life. Since I was a child, I was sexualized. And I wanted to be seen for more than just sex and what my body looked like and all of these other things. And I thought, how can I take my power back, right? And then here I was, guided into this dungeon. And then I went back. I had another job at this place. And after the third time, this person came up to me and they were like, would you like to try this? And I was like, I really don't know. It looked like it hurt, And they said to me, I won't do anything that you're not okay with. We'll start lightly, and if it's too much, you say when. And I was like, wow, what a concept, Because, I've experienced, like I said, I've experienced the darker side of abuse sexually. So honestly, there was so much of my experiences in relationships, even when I was in a relationship, I was numb. We could be engaging in sex and I was somewhere different. Like, we call that disassociation. So, and that's very common in trauma. So, I wasn't enjoying it. I was just there. My body and my mind and my soul were not connected. I was playing the part and I was there physically, but not in other ways. And a lot of times I can't even say that I enjoyed it because I wasn't present. I had to take myself out of the scenario. So it was interesting to have somebody say, no, you're in control here. Okay, is my thought, and so they guided me over. There's different tools and implements in BDSM, and there's the saltire cross, which people are familiar with. It looks like this, your hands and your legs. And then there's the sawhorse, where you are essentially, your body is along the middle part and your legs are on the side. There are simple massage beds. There's so many different it goes on and on and on and on. But I chose the sawhorse for my first experience, and something happened. It was the way the person talked to me. Do you like this? Is it too hard? Is it too much? Do you want me to go harder? Do you want me to go softer? It was the constant care of how I was feeling. And at first, again, I was like I was struggling because I was trying to remove myself from the situation, but the questions forced me to pay attention. And it forced me into my body. It made me say, do I like this? Is this okay? It goes us back around, like I said it would, to what it is that I do. I had somewhat of like a dream, a premonition, and I felt really called to BDSM. My dream was really specific. It was, you've got to bring light to BDSM. I call it the BDSM movement because that's really what it is. There's all different ways to heal. This one I think is so incredibly powerful because for people who have experienced even some of what I'm talking about, whether you could have experienced like really physical abuse, at the hands of somebody, whether it's sexual, verbal, emotional, mental. Abuse is abuse. You're absolutely right. There's also this saying, what once hurt you can heal you. So it's taking back the power in the situation that initially hurt you. So I felt so called to bring the light to the BDSM world. Yes, there's extremes to everything, but the healing that can be accomplished through the use of BDSM, because it allows mind, body, soul back together, where you are so aware and so conscious of every action that's taking place, especially in the hands of somebody who has your best interests at heart. Their goal is to help you get to a place of healing. You're not going to be abused. You're going to be healed. You're going to be helped. You're going to be saved, right? So I started with, it all just kind of came together because it took the gifts that I had already and then just implemented something so basic, right? And it's intimacy. Forcing your person, the client, into a state of meditation so they're relaxed. You're meditating. And then I simply use different tools. So I'm going to start showing you. Literally light touch. So I start with something, and everything I use, I always tell people I love to do this because even if you're just trying to like reconnect with your partner and you have lost some of the intimate aspect of the relationship, not sexual, intimate, meaning like the things that lead up to where you're showing the person that you care in other ways, that's intimacy, okay? So, and I'm not going to get into that aspect of it because that is my intimacy workshop and I don't want to go too far into that. It's not really what I'm here to talk about today. So anyways, but I usually will, so long as everyone is on board, I give every single person a blindfold. Everything is bought at the Dollar Tree. Not everything, but most of the things that I buy, I get from the Dollar Tree. And the main reason that I use the Dollar Tree is so that it's the concept, this is like initiating, right? Where maybe we're not so sure we want to dive all the way into BDSM. We don't know where we are with it. So let's start with things we can afford. And then should we find that we really like it, then we go from there. And we start shopping at places like Hot Flicks, I think it's called the Lion's Den. You know, you start purchasing things that are a little bit more high end. But anyways, so I start with a blindfold, some earplugs. The main reason for this is that when we take away one or two of the sensors, then it heightens the others. So depending on the person's trauma, but usually it all goes hand in hand. So, you know, a blindfold, some earplugs, they're ready to rock, you know, like, and then again, we're meditating, we're in the zone, and we start with really light, basic things. So again, I'm going to start showing you, like, nothing sexual. I typically don't even put my physical hands on the individual. So this is a feather duster. You can purchase this at the Dollar Tree for $1 whole. Well, I lied. Now they're $1.25, you know, but very basic, right? But all the while, you're talking to the individual and you're asking them if they like that. Some people don't like being tickled, you know, but you find these things out as you bring out different tools. So you never know what somebody's trauma is until, again, sometimes I can tell just by the reaction they give whether or not something, they may be like, I don't know if I want to say anything because they're not quite sure. But we start with things like a light feather boa. Another tool. One of the most sensual things that people enjoy and don't have the opportunity to experience is physical touch. You know, a lot of, even in our most intimate relationships, you know, husband, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, a lot of people kind of, and don't take it personally, it's just facts. We're attracted on a physical level, and we kind of just skip parts of getting to know somebody. And one of them is like basic things, like how they like to be touched, you know, if you're relaxing on the couch. And so again, these implements, you know, you just sit there and you put this actually goes over someone's head. And so like if this is their head, and it goes down into their scalp, and it really massages the hair follicles, and it's one of the most amazing feelings ever. So, and it's very healing to have that physical touch. Again, this can go in the hair, on the skin, rubbing it gently. These are all sensory, I call them sensory play, you know. So when I start with my intimate workshops, this is where we start. We start with the lighter side. We start with intimate touch, you know, not breaking out the flogs and the crops. If we follow through with that, towards the end we talk about it, but we don't jump right into that aspect of BDSM. And so for some people that like a little bit more of a sting, this is a very cheap but effective. These are zip ties with a rubber band on the end. Light tapping. You would be amazed at how many people love this sensation. Love it. They absolutely love it. And you can do this lightly on the back, on the arms, on the bottom of the feet. I'm going to bring out a few more things in my arsenal, but I don't want to show everything, because then what reason would you have to come to one of my online workshops, right? But this is where I just want you guys to understand BDSM a little bit on a level that you were probably not expecting, because you're not the first, you won't be the only. But where your mind initially took you, if you didn't already know me as a person, yeah. And it's okay. Honestly, I don't hold it against anyone. I'm here to educate. I'm here to help you understand that there are many different ways to heal and help yourself through trauma. And I personally feel like however you get there, as long as you get there. Because what happens when we don't heal is we fall into addiction and toxic relationships. You know, I mean, healing is whatever works, really. This worked for me, and it seems to be working for the people that engage with me, and I'm so happy that I'm able to provide that for people. Anyways, back to some of the things that I do. And again, these people are in a meditative state. We're relaxed. There's candles and incense going, and I'm talking to them and, you know, using these things to make sure the communication is open. They are in control, truly. They are the ones who are controlling the dynamic of what they are receiving. So, that being said, for people who like a little bit more of a sting, and again, things like this, it seems really scary, but like, again, we all like different things, and it's not for you to judge. So, some people like lighter touch, some people like more of what we call a sting or a thud. These are just basic spoons. I didn't get these at the Dollar Tree. I got them in like a pack of 4 at like Ross, but for somebody who's really trying to feel something, you know, but you work your way to that. You don't just immediately like bring out the, you know, you can, but I don't recommend it. So these are kitchen utensils, you know. Another one that I like, this is like, you know, for massaging, like some people use it after a workout to work out the knots in their muscles. These are, again, it's just sensory, you know, you're talking to the person and maybe they need a massage at the beginning first to relax and lighten up. And again, energetically, I'm going to be able to tell where they are. If they're still real tight and tense, I'm going to try and massage them first and get them a little bit more relaxed before I start working on them in, you know, with the other tools and stuff. So, you know, massaging implements are always really good. And dowels, oh my goodness. Again, these have like a little bit of a sting, similar to a spoon or your zip ties, but you can control the tighter the grip, the more the sting. The looser the grip, the less of the sting. So you learn these things and you're not just wailing away on the person, you're communicating with them and you're asking them what it is that they need, what it is that they like, how hard, how soft. Communication and consent. So if the person stops communicating, you should stop whatever it is you're doing. Even if it started with consent, if they stop communicating while you're communicating, that's a sign that you need to like reevaluate and assess the situation before you move on. Okay? And the last thing I'm going to show you, because I do have quite a few other things, but again, I really don't want to show you everything I use because then I give away all my tricks, you know? This is a really amazing, it's bunny fur. Don't hate me, PETA. But so soft to the touch and it's gentle. And again, this might be the person's really tense when you start and you just need to like relax them, and something really, really soft like this is gonna help them like ease down and like let their guard down just a little. And the list goes on and on, honestly. What ends up happening for me, and why I'm good at what I do, is because, again, the information that your body feeds me, I'm just the vessel and the voice. The things that come through me are because the individual allows it to happen and they want it to happen. They want to release whatever it is that's been holding them down. And that part of it is beautiful. I have seen some magic, literal. It's like so hard to explain, but it is magic to witness people let go of trauma. And BDSM has the power to do that. It is not as harmful as people portray it to be. If anything, like I said, there's plenty of vanilla. We call it vanilla, you know, like if you're not into, you just do kind of like the normal relationship stuff, which is totally fine. However you interact with your human beings, that's fine. But I've had plenty of vanilla relationships where I was really abused. And no one asked me if that was okay. There wasn't talking about it. And I felt that a lot of the other types of relationships that I have experienced were a lot more toxic than being part of the BDSM community. And the main reason for that is the communication that happens between the people interacting. There's a million different names and titles that I just am not going to go over right now. But the main part of BDSM is consent and communication. And when you walk into a dungeon, a good dungeon like the one that I was talking about, and you're able, if you actually sit around and watch, there's communication. They're talking to each other. They're communicating their wants, their needs, and it's mutual. There's consent happening on both parts. And that's another thing about BDSM. Just because you're the sub and I'm the dom, if you ask me to do something that I'm not comfortable with, I have the right to say, I'm sorry, I'm not comfortable with that. One thing also I always tell people, I have plenty of people who fill my inboxes with all kinds of crazy requests. I refuse to engage in any sort of degradation, humiliation, and even if that's your thing, I'm okay. That's your choice. But I am here to heal. I don't want to participate in any self-harm of any kind. So I'm done rambling, but I want, and I hope that if you watched tonight, that you were able to enjoy and learn a little something new about BDSM.